And then we ended up in like a fucked up foster home from hell, abused, beaten, starved. Every abuse you could imagine these motherfuckers were doing to us in there. And it just hardened me. And, they eventually closed the house down and removed all the kids. They were doing it for the money, feeding us fucking dog food. Just fucking horrible people. And
So you hear a lot of stories about abuse in the foster care system. Why do you think that is?
well, here the social workers are overloaded with caseloads, so they can't keep track of all the people, right? And then so what my foster father, the first time I spoke up, he took me to a nut house and threatened to put me in a nut house if I ever spoke up again. And I was a kid. I was like fucking 8 years old. And then the social worker would come once every fucking 5-6 months and say, yeah, I'm coming for a home visit. And then they would terrorize us that if we said anything, they'd beat the shit out of us. They'd lock us up somewhere. So we were living in fear. So that's why, people say, why didn't you say something? Because you're a fucking kid and there's an adult beating the shit out of you, telling you they're going to lock you in a fucking insane asylum if you open your mouth. And I mean, we lived in a state of perpetual fear that whole time that we were there. They made us sleep in the fucking garage. Like, it was fucked up. And, that's why these kids, all this shit is happening. Even today, it still happens. Every time I hear these fucking stories of these foster parents, and they do it for the money, because back then they were getting like $300 a month for each kid with fucking 6 kids, $1,800 a month. Back in the 60s and early 70s, that was a lot of money. And their 2 real children got everything. They were older, but they got cars, they got fucking vacations, they ate the best food. We had to sit out. We weren't even allowed in the house. We weren't ever allowed to go in the refrigerator. We never got to clean our clothes. Never got to take baths. Like, everybody had to take a bath in the same water. Like, just fucking sick people.
Why do you think they were evil to you? I mean, they could have taken care of you, done a good job, and still made a good living. Why do you think they were downright evil?
Because the money that they got was for our maintenance. So instead of buying us clothes, they made us go into the Salvation Army poor box. So instead of giving us food, they fed us. The first meal I ever had, she fucking scraped the white filling off of Oreos and spit it in a bowl and put it on moldy white bread, and that was our breakfast with tea. They fed the dog the same food, and they fed the dog before us just to let us know the pecking order. The dog that they had came before us. So no, they couldn't have made money and bought cars and done all the shit that they did if they would have spent the money the way they were supposed to spend the money. You don't get money for taking care of a kid. You get money for the maintenance of that kid. So if you don't care for the maintenance of that child, you're pocketing the money. And the thing was, they couldn't really put it in the bank, so we found out where they stashed the money. And then, the first home my brother E was in, my older brother, the guy was only taking in foster kid girls from Vietnam, because it was the Vietnam and it was all the orphans, and he was raping the girls. So they fucking closed that house and put my brother in with us. And he was like, yo, they get money for us. I'm like, what? And then we searched to find where the fuck the stash was, and we found it. And then we started taking our money back, and we bought my mother gifts to try to get her to take us back. We would
and
go
where was
hungry.
she at this time?
She was in Queens, but she had, she was a nervous. Like, we went home on a visit once, and she tried to commit suicide. She flipped the fuck out on us and had to take pills. We had to call my uncle to come to get her, and then we went back to the foster home and never went home for a while after that. And she had a new boyfriend that didn't want us around, so that's what she did. She chose, she admits like what happened. That's why we're tight now, as a family, because she came clean on all the shit. Like, I confronted her, when my brother almost died and he just did die October 20th, but it was right the day before 9/11. I had to do an intervention. He was living in somebody's attic in Staten Island the day before 9/11, and she's like, if you don't get your brother, he's going to be dead. So and then the next day he couldn't get out. So for fucking 3 weeks, he detoxed on my couch, like going over all the horror stories, both of us breaking down, fucking over the whole shit. And then, it was a heavy time, and I just confronted her with the whole shit. And then she told me the real story, that she was raped, and everything. I knew my father was violent, but I didn't know the extent of it. So now we moved on as a family, and, I'm writing about it. I'm writing a fucking TV show, a movie, all kinds of stuff based on, what I had to go through, which, made me a stronger person in life.